GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows. Available everywhere podcasts.
Hello everyone and welcome back into the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast. And for our fourth segment, we're going to be looking at a question about a certain team in the Eastern Conference making a meteoric rise through the standings, the Cleveland Cavaliers. A lot of people have truly questioned the depth and experience of this roster and whether it will all come crashing down at some point. But through it all, through all the adversity, through all the questions surrounding this roster, the Cleveland Cavaliers still sit atop the Eastern Conference, have some of the most impressive wins of the season. Their 129-122 win over the OKC Thunder, proving this team is for real. They have another chance against the Thunder, I believe, tonight, or if it already happened, I'm not sure what happened, but I still think that the Cleveland Cavaliers, with their previous win over OKC, have already proved that they are for real. But here is why. And I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily, when they look at teams that make prize runs, dig deep into the reasons. I just think they look at it in terms of face value and say, okay, well, we're going to have to accept the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers are now an elite Eastern Conference team, maybe the most elite team in the entire league. They don't necessarily look at the players, the construction of this roster, the coaching, and things of that nature. So without further ado, that's what I'm going to do here and analyze the rise of the Cavs and why I do believe it's justified in saying that they are indeed for real in the NBA. And I think in terms of coaching, I know a lot of people, if they are Cavs fans, were skeptical about Kenny Atkinson because he was responsible for the fractured nature of that Kevin Durant, James Harden, Brooklyn Nets team. And this was a Cavaliers team that really was starting from ground zero a little bit. They did go out and sign Donovan Mitchell, but Kenny Atkinson was someone who was not necessarily the most appealing hire at the coaching position for Cleveland. But what I congratulate him in doing is diagnosing Donovan Mitchell as the vocal leader of this team and saying to him, what do we need out of these young guys to truly make us a team? And Donovan Mitchell going out and explaining the vision and helping guide this team to that vision set forth by Kenny Atkinson. And it's all showing up in every single one of their plays. You have Evan Mobley having a career year in terms of his versatility of both the power forward and center positions. Jarrett Allen being a veteran anchor down low as always. And then Darius Garland stepping up along with Donovan Mitchell in that backcourt as well. And then, it all comes down to not just the plays, the stats as well. When Mobley's on the court, and this has proven his versatility, and I think he's one of the biggest reasons that this Cleveland Cavaliers team could be for real. They have a 104.8 defensive rating when Mobley is on the court, second to only OKC in the league. And I feel like a lot of pieces to this puzzle might have gone unsolved had not Donovan Mitchell been here, because they have a veteran leader, a quote-unquote superstar leading their team. They have someone they can trust in terms of keeping it all together. And that's something that I think has to go to Atkinson in terms of who needs his flowers. Because Atkinson, I feel like, had too much on his plate with all the stars in Brooklyn. But just having one guy in Donovan Mitchell, who's kind of the anchor, the glue that holds this team together, really helps them in certain situations and really helping them become one of the elite Eastern Conference teams. And another thing that I feel like a lot of people don't appreciate about the coaching job here is the pace of this Cavs team. Faster ball movement, whether it be in the half court or in transition. Just sharing the basketball, being unselfish, and speeding the game up to their pace, because they were 22nd last year in terms of pace, too slow in this Eastern Conference that's seemingly evolving week in, week out. And kudos to Kenny Atkinson, first and foremost, as the coach of this Cleveland Cavaliers team, for trusting his superstar Donovan Mitchell to be the vocal leader of this team, and B, implementing a faster pace needed to keep up in this evolutionary Eastern Conference and NBA. Let's talk with the players as well. Let's start off with Evan Mobley's play. We already talked about the defensive rating, but it's more than just the defensive side of the basketball, because Evan Mobley is tough to guard down low, especially when the Cavs are moving the ball quickly. And so that's what really needed to happen. I feel like in order for people to consider this Cavs team as elite, them to have a versatile big man who can get to the rim and then on the other side protect it. And that's what Evan Mobley has become this season. They've been using him a lot more. They've been getting a lot of production down low from him. He's more involved in half-court sets. He's not just someone who is that anchor on offense, getting down low. He's involved in bringing the ball up. He's involved in moving the basketball, getting inside, getting to the rim, and ultimately finishing for them. So the way he's been able to step up in terms of the front court, because there really is not necessarily the biggest veteran presence. I mean, Jarrett Allen's a veteran, and he's worked with Kenny Atkinson before, but he's not necessarily someone as big and as pronounced and high profile as Donovan Mitchell. So you needed that element in your front court, because Jarrett Allen is a brilliant player in his own right, but you needed that extra oomph. You needed someone who was a little bit more versatile offensively and a little bit more aggressive defensively as well. And that's what Evan Mobley has become. And thus it's made this offense more versatile, more fearsome, just because you have a floor spacing big man in Mobley to worry about, and then you can add in the physicality of Allen down low, and then you have to worry about both Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell's elite perimeter shooting. And that's what adds to the formula for the Cavs. And I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily respect that kind of play from a player like Mobley, just because, you know, a lot of people may not even have known how elite Evan Mobley could become. And so the fact that he has become this elite, the fact that they have entrusted him with a lot more, goes to show that this Cavs team are willing to take the risks necessary to really ignite their attack and revolutionize their attack as well. Because they wouldn't be at this point without Mobley's improvement. So yet again, another player improving amongst the squad and adding to the depth and dynamism necessary to undertake such a daunting task and speeding up the game. And so that's why I have to shout at Evan Mobley first and foremost for his play, because without him, then this Cavs team might look a bit more mortal. It might look a little bit more traditional. But because of Evan Mobley, because of the pace, because of the versatility, because he's more involved in half-court sets, things of that magnitude, it really pays dividends for the Cavs. And then let's talk about Donovan Mitchell's leadership, because it goes unsung. This is a guy who in the league is still viewed as a superstar, but is not necessarily someone who necessarily needs to dominate a game for his presence to be felt. I feel like he allows this young team space to breathe. He allows his backcourt partner Darius Garland to really shine as well, and it's coming through in how this team plays, because it's not superstar-centric. It's not Mitchell-centric first and foremost, which is most integral when you have a superstar like him. And so I do think that even though a lot of people may be apprehensive to put him in superstar range, I like the selfless superstar. As a fan of Boston, I'm very comfortable with saying we have two selfless superstars in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And for the Cavs, Donovan Mitchell is theirs. And it pays dividends to allow this young team not just to mature in the system, but to gain confidence that they can become superstars. And you know what? They really are. Darius Garland is now the superstar, in my opinion, of this backcourt with his elite perimeter shooting. We've seen it pay dividends in huge games. And then down low as well, and off the bench, certain pieces as well, we can see really find their confidence. So like I said, kudos to Kenny Atkinson for not blowing this out of proportion much like potentially what happened with Brooklyn, where he let things get a little bit too out of hand with all the superstars there. Kudos for him for keeping this team within itself rather than leaving it to fracture relationships itself. Because Donovan Mitchell has truly proven that you don't necessarily need to be the loudest voice in the locker room or the biggest personality in the locker room to lead your team. And so that's why, when it all comes together, the Cleveland Cavaliers are scary. Because they're unshakable, they're young, they're motivated, and most importantly, their coach trusts that because of a player like Mitchell, his young players can succeed. And that's why the narrative is starting to shift around this team. That's why the narrative is starting to shift around Kenny Atkinson as well. And most importantly, the narrative is shifted in terms of how they can compete in this Eastern Conference. And I do think that we can safely answer this question saying the Cleveland Cavaliers are real. And they're not going anywhere. And they could take that all the way to a Larry O'Brien trophy this June. But let me know what you think in the comments below, because I really think that this question could be interpreted in many different ways. But coming next, we conclude by going across the pond, revisiting Deschamps stepping down as France's manager and who could potentially replace him, and why I think Zinedine Zidane could be just the right guy to fill his shoes. I'll be right back to finish the show after this short break.